Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a priest! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to an instant reaction edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. And goodness, does it feel good to put that little caveat on the introduction. Yes, the instant reaction is back. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me to break down Parramatta's first hit out of the 2025 preseason, and it is week 2 technically, but I did mention earlier this week that it's really week 1 of the preseason trials. We don't care for those round 0 squads going over to Vegas. But joining me to break down what is a very, very entertaining victory for the Parramatta Eels is my good mate Sixties. Big fella, we were pumped up for this game, and it's fair to say that while there were some errors and you know, sort of things that tidy up here and there, as is wont to be for your first hit out, that was everything we were asking for in our preview podcast and our news podcast as well. Everything we were looking for and more.
Yes, mate. Well, yes, we're back. Not without our gremlins, mate. Not without our gremlins.
Yes, testing things for next week for hopefully a nice little upgrade to the Tip Sheet podcast moving forwards. And I introduced some gremlins into the system that we had to quickly iron out in the first attempts to record this instant reaction podcast.
Yeah. So we had a little bit of fun with the gremlins that were existing just then. And just before we go any deeper into this, a shout out to our sponsor star partners, Ryles-ed, Auburn, Ellen and Parramatta. And a little reminder, give a like and subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening to this on. But, mate, look, I couldn't have asked more from this trial. I mean, I'm enjoying the fact that it was a win. It's far better than the alternative. We don't put too much credence onto trial results, but you'd have to say if you're the Eels coaching staff, you'd be reasonably happy with what you saw tonight.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, you don't get too overhyped about a trial result because both sides are going to be tweaking new systems, getting new players in. For Newcastle, they had a fullback playing 5'8" in a transitional process. So there's to be, some serious degree of leniency allowed for on-field results. But in terms of what we saw here, 60s, I am very pleased. I'm not booking my grand final tickets just yet, obviously, but like I said in the intro, as far as what we're asking for out of this trial, it was pretty much tick, tick, tick in the check boxes there. No major injuries to speak of. Lots of really encouraging signs from senior players, from new faces, from young prospects. So let's get into it and break down what really impressed us and what we want to see worked on heading into that trial against the West Tigers, mate. Parramatta Eels 44, accounting for the Newcastle Knights 18, and they had a shot at the 50-burger. Young Tinkin Brown nearly going over as a buzzer sound, so that would have put the Eels on the half-ton right there, but not to be. But crucially, that big score, 60s, puts the Eels in the box seat to make a tilt of that preseason challenge money, that 100K bonus for the squad. So at one point it looked like it was going to be not really in the mix of Newcastle getting into gear in that third quarter, but the Eels stormed home. So breaking down the try scorers for the Knights, Greg Marju got on the board for them in the 22nd minute. Logan Aoke, Kyle McCarthy and young gun Jermaine McEwen scoring for them. Mixed bag for the goal kickers across the two. Connor Vitano ended up kicking conversion for the McEwen try, but the 3 prior attempts were missed by a little bit of collaborative process there. For the Parramatta Eels, Dylan Brown was the opening scorer in the 2nd minute, and he stormed onto a ball from the scrum win and sort of powered his way over. Jake Tungor, Kelma Tuolangi, Joash Papali, Jordan Samrani, a double for Artie Miller-Steven, including the final try of the game. A great individual effort from Samuel Luizu in the 72nd minute. So 8 tries there for the Blue and Gold. Ronald Volkman and Josh Lynn combining for 6 from 8. I think they missed 1 apiece looking at this, I believe. So pretty handy day, 75% for both of them off the tee. In terms of the stats, Eels dominated possession, 60s, 57% to 43. They were plus 5.5 in time possession in terms of minutes. Completed really nicely, 74%. So despite the feel of those errors, 60s, when they did start stringing together those sets, it ended up helping that completion rate get to the mid-70s, really nice, 32 or 43. Eels ahead in all key attacking stats, more runs, more run meters, so they were plus 37 in the runs, plus nearly 600 on the ground. Really good stuff there, including plus 127, it looks like, on the post-contact meters. 8 line breaks to 4, 23 tackle breaks to 20. Bit surprising tackle breaks only plus 3 there, given how dominant they were, but one of those weird things in the tails of the tape. And the average play to ball speed, still faster for our opponents. So new coach, but some things stay the same. But kick defusal rate 100%, so really nice there. Although I would argue that Joash probably had a shot at maybe getting that 40-20 from Tyson Gamble. So you could argue that might have been one non-kick defusal there. But effective tackle rate, 90.5% there, so nice and tidy. And then in terms of individual stats, we'll get to them shortly. What was your feel about the macro level play of the Eels there? Because I think outside of that third quarter, they were really good, but they were a little bit slow to get in gear in both the start of the first half and start of the second half.
Yeah, that's my major take, John, is that the errors that were there at the start of both halves, it really prevented the Eels' attack from clicking into gear, probably put their defence under a little bit too much pressure. We saw those tries coming for the Knights off the Eels, on the back of those Eels errors, and I guess you can't really call it an error when the Knights got that 40-20, which set up that third try of theirs. No, it was the fourth try, wasn't it? They did get 4 tries.
4 tries, yes. They only kicked the one goal.
Yeah. So that was their last try. But anyway, credit to them for that particular one. But just the way that the Eels clicked into gear, not just in their attacking play, but also in their completions once they settled down in both halves, because I think they completed something like the last 11 sets of the half in the first half, and then the last 12 sets of the half in the second half. Now, if you don't give the opposition a sniff when you're in possession like that, you're going a long way towards controlling the game and ultimately ending up ahead on the scoreboard. That's exactly how it panned out. Now, there are obviously lots of changes that happened. Probably one of the most pleasing things was that they really settled down in that first half, actually after the first raft of changes. Now, you might have expected them to struggle to get back on track in terms of their completions, but yeah, they seem to get it together once they had that first round of changes in the first half.
And that was probably the most impressive sort of team or macro level thing that I noted, was that when they brought in a lot of young players in that rotation, they got their senior players out there. They put them back on in the second half, but they got a lot of young guys in there, and they sort of just turned the game. Well, not really turned the game, but completely stuck to the game plan and put the foot on the throat of the Knights. So really pleasing to see those young guys come in and just really take to the systems that were in place there.
Yeah. Now, it's pretty obvious to Eels supporters about some of the basics of the changes to the Eels systems this year. Now, you saw the forward play being a lot faster, a lot more mobile. You also saw the impact of a bit of coaching from Nathan Brown around the halves, some of the work that he's been doing. Especially the way he's been getting the halves to square up as they dig into the line, and you saw the benefit of that. I mean, a couple of plays there, Dylan just looked like he had this extra skill to his kit. And in terms of the, probably some of the lesser-known players like Josh Lynn and Arpa Twiddle, you could see the advancement in their skill levels as well as a result of that.
I mean, now Ronald Volkman looked lethal, didn't he, with that first couple of steps, sort of using that Nathan Brown methodology, attacking into the line with that ball in front, really asking multiple questions of the defense. And I think that's how you saw him help either set up directly that try for Kelma Tuolungi or being the sort of pivotal fulcrum for those shifts out right to Jake Tungle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mentioned in one of the training reports about how dominant Ronald Volkman was in on a particular training day in the scrimmages, where he actually really engineered what was a close contest between the NRL and New South Wales Cup teams on this particular day, simply because he was just so busy with similar sorts of plays throughout the scrimmage. So he did, like, you can see now that those sorts of players, they're transferring what's been happening on the training track to this first trial. Now, we get to round one and the real stuff starting, and it's a whole different kettle of fish. You may not even necessarily see these players, but you'd also like to think that when you've got a Mitch Moses coming in, it takes it to another level. We were impressed enough with Ronald Volkman's play today, but Mitch Moses then takes it to another level where there's a little bit of confidence there, is that if the likes of Volkman and then when he plays Dean Hawkins can execute if they can execute at that level whenever they're filling in for one of the halves, if injury strikes, we've got a bit more confidence in that depth aspect this year. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well was we saw a number of times those attempted blindside plays, and what impressed me with that was the way that the players stayed alive and backed each other up. Now, that's something that Scott Wisemantle's been really working on as well.
And the best part is, you know who was the best exponent of the short side play in the NRL? And he wasn't playing today, but he was there on the sideline, Mitchell Moses. So the Eels were looking sharp at that without their best player, and also the best player doing it in the code. So Scotty Wisemantle's got some really nice systems in play there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen a couple of things come to the fore. I wasn't expecting to see too much in what the Eels delivered tonight.
No, but what it was crisp attacking structures. Like, they were conventional. Yeah. But like you said, that first, like almost the first step, but the first few steps from those playmakers, whether it was Volkman or Dylan in the front line, whether it was Arper and Josh Lynn in the secondary, they were creating a lot of attacking structures and space out wide by just being really assertive with initiative from the first step, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, this is conventional rugby league stuff, but when it's done well, these are the sorts of executions that create problems for defensive sides, for the defensive sides. And, it's when you see the players drilling those sorts of things at training, you see where there are certain players who it comes natural to and some players that it doesn't come natural to. So that, some people have to work harder than others at putting a particular skill or play into their kit bag. And what we saw tonight, I think, was evidence of the work that some players have put into their game during the pre-season. It's very, very encouraging to see what we saw tonight. Because the other thing is too, when the game was over, we saw the talent that was there still on the sideline. And that's probably the most encouraging thing, because so many of those young players made a good fist of their time out on the field tonight. I mean, really good fist of it, to the point where players like Will
Latu, very impressive tonight.
Yeah, Tinkham Brown.
Yep.
Araz Nanva, he had that involvement in the try down the blind side.
Josh Lynn is, in terms of seniority, has to be behind Volkman and Hawkins, but he went out there and played a great game. Like, he's given the coaching staff plenty to think of, and Lynn is still flag eligible, I believe. So that's not, I am correct in saying that, right? 60s, he played the SG Ball final in 23, so 24 goes the first year flag, 25 second year flag. So that saves a headache there, but it's a good headache. So, I mean, Brock Parker, we mentioned Will Latu, Tinkham Brown, Big Sammy Tuivasa was great, and we'll talk about him shortly, but so many, fringe is the wrong way of saying it, just young prospects putting their hands up here, and exactly what you want to see, and especially with someone like Tinkham Brown too, who got into this game on the back of a great preseason effort in the Jersey flag. He wasn't part of the top squad in the preseason, so he's obviously earned this, and he's shown why he earned it. So well done to the young fellow there.
Yeah, so there were a few players there that came into the team who weren't part of the full-time squad in pre-season. So we're talking about Samuel Luizio, Tiankum Brown, Araz Nanva, and Max Tupu.
Max Tupu, yeah, that's that one.
Yeah, so I think they were the players that came in on the back of,
and none of them embarrassed themselves by any measure, and if anything, a lot of them enhanced their prospects. So well done.
Yeah, you can see for a start that there are key players who have bought into the changes that have occurred in the pre-season, the different structures, different shapes that are being employed, and it's I mean it's an understatement to say that it's early days with one trial where maybe half the team didn't play. Half of the round one team didn't play, but again, what it comes back to is what I wanted to see tonight, which was the sort of putting into play what the coach had been looking for during the pre-season. And I think that's exactly what they were able to do. And that's probably the most pleasing thing for me from that trial.
Yep.
Now, looking at individual performances, John, are there any that you want to call out, or you're happy with it just as a totality of the squad?
I mean, no, we should do some individual standouts here, because on the totality, we've talked about a lot of the positives and then some of the stuff we want to see improved against the West Tigers, obviously. But I think there were certainly efforts that do need to be praised on multiple fronts here. Talking about whether ball in hand or on defense statistically or from the eye test. So let's go through with the players that jumped off the page for me before we even talk about numbers. We praised all the playmakers. I thought they were, as a group and to a man, were very, very good. The big V-dub, Ronald Volkman and Dylan Brown, very classy in that frontline rotation. And then obviously in the second wave, young Josh Lynn and Arpatwad are doing a great job there. So really well done to all four playmakers there. I thought both fullbacks looked really good. Isaiah Yongi got very limited minutes. The coach saw enough after that try assist to Jake Tungor. NRL.com's got it credited for 81 minutes play, but I think it was closer to 21 than 81.
I think they've got a few players credited with 81.
I think the entire starting 13 get the 81 minutes right now. They've found an extra 13 minutes in there too, 1 minute for each of those players. But then obviously the man who deputised Isaiah in Joash Papali, he looked electric. Some really nice plays. That line break down the right that he set up by Josh Lynn, where he just puts the foot down, breaks the line, and then has a nice little fadeaway pass to the hardworking Jordan Samrani on his outside there, was fantastic.
He's really got that acceleration. That's what gets him through. His pace over 100 metres might not end up being something extraordinary, but he'd be quick over 100,
but not like fast, which I know sounds stupid, but there is a difference. And he get gunned down by longer striding opposition. But that first 10, 20 metres, he is a little bit like Michael Jennings back in the day, right? Just pure electricity.
I heard a comparison between him and Benny Barber in terms of
you can see it.
That evasiveness and that footwork, speed off the mark, and I think that's probably a fair call. Perhaps even a younger Anthony Milford, as well. It's that footwork, that acceleration, that sort of thing. Now, you don't want to put labels on players that haven't even played first grade as yet, but he's certainly an exciting prospect for the Eels and adds to that depth option in the fullback position, because in previous years, if we had Gutho out, it was really stopgap measures, wasn't it, for how we covered the fullback position. So in this instance, maybe they've got, well, if you can call him a specialist fullback, but that's where he's played most of his Pathways football, Joash Papali'i. So, quite a good performance from him. Yeah. Anyone else, John? That you?
Yeah, I'm going to go down the list here because there were plenty of players that deserve some shout outs here. I thought in defense, Richard Penasini was really impressive. 60s. I loved his reads. I loved the initial contact. I thought he looked very much like his brother in that regard, who, as a junior, was always a very stout defender. So well done to Richie there. Jordan Samrani. On the flip side, I thought look, he wasn't terrible in defense, but I think there'll be a bit of work done there. But he got through a mountain of work 60s. I didn't actually realise it until I looked at the numbers. He clocked in just about 200 metres off 23 carries. And perhaps most impressively was his ability to snuff out those short restarts from Newcastle. He got up AFL style, well off the ground, hands up to take a short dropout and a short kickoff. And that's been a real sort of a backbreaker for the Eels in recent seasons. We've had tall timber like Sean Lane, but we haven't been able to consistently come down with the ball in those situations. So really happy to see someone being so aggressive in those situations.
Well, we spoke about that before we recorded, and his ability to, I guess, to have that skill in the air.
Yeah, the ability to high point the ball. It's a fairly unique skill. Like, it's one of those ones that seems so easy and so obvious, but combining everything in synchronous to, leave the field at the right time and get in the air and then high point the ball at the right moment and then be able to keep tracking the ball through, not even incidental, like some pretty significant contact. Like, he got hit in the air in that one and he held onto it. So, really.
Well, look, he's a big unit, John. And the thing is, he's probably someone who is almost like, if people remember Ben Smith.
My brother made that exact comparison while watching this game. Yeah, and he's a little leaner than the Penguin was back in the day, I think, but they are similar frames, that sort of hybrid back rower back sort of positioning in the body.
Yeah, you can sort of imagine someone like Sam Rani transitioning into the back row in his later years. Maybe it'll happen in his earlier years, for all we know. But I think he will have that versatility, and it's a versatility that I think comes from his physique as much as anything else. So, I'll let you continue now, John, with your run through the list.
A couple of errors early on for Arthur Miller-Stephen, but Artie bounced back big time, bagged the double, and looked a lot more comfortable as the game went on, so good to see there. Already praised the halves. Starters like Joffa, Brendan Hands, and Woody were really solid as we expected. And just a little word to the wise, I do know who the mysterious dacked was. And it wasn't one of the players not playing, which I'm surprised. It was actually one of the front rowers, 60s. Can you guess, between Joffa and Woody, who was the culprit that dacked poor man Zac Lomax?
I can see either of them laughing after executing the dacking.
This one looked very suspicious. He knew he was on camera and had a little look back and then circled round. And then I got Parramatta's star recruit while I was on broadcast.
Look, it could be either one, but I'd have to think that it's got to go with a more senior player in Joffa.
Oh, he reads it perfectly. Yes, indeed. The big number 8 there had the Dennis the Menace look in his eyes there as he circled round and got Zac on TV. So that caused a lot of fun on the broadcast there as the commentators barely held it together for that one. But going back to the players, I'm giving a shout out. Now, this one's a bit of a two-edged sword, 60s, or double-edged sword, as I like to say, because I loved what I saw from him with the ball in hand, but the problem was that the ball wasn't always in hand. Gideon Katonga, who's been one of our preseason standouts, looked really physical and really impressive down that left edge, got away some great offloads, but also some loose carries. And so I love the raw potential there, but he's going to have to work on that ball carrying ability for sure.
Yeah, Gideon is someone that I'd mark down as close to a certain starter for round one. And it was no surprise for me to see he and Kilmer lining up.
Physically dominant.
Yeah. I mean, they're not clones of each other, but they both bring a similar physicality on each side of the ruck, and that mobility, the pace, the strength carrying the ball. They're real running threats. And we also saw that Gideon's got a good offload in him as well.
Yep.
I guess it will come down to what happens in the trial next week and whether he can get those errors under control, because I think if the errors continue, it might be costly in terms of a start in round one.
Yep.
but
Very fair.
I think we saw enough potential from him that he's going to be hard to hold out for a starting.
Yeah. And you're not going to
position.
condemn a man for one game where he made a couple of errors. Don't get me wrong, but it's just one of those early warning signs that you want to see him get on top of, because what you did see when he held onto the ball was really impressive. The Knights really struggled to contain him. He was freeing that right arm consistently, and if not, was winning that initial contact with pretty much every carry. So really liked what I saw. Likewise, Kelma Tuolangi looked clearly a cut above today. Some real big bullocking runs, scored a nice try. How
would you like to be the fullback when he's strolling through?
And it's not just the fullbacks don't have to worry about him strolling through now. On the fifth tackle, the Eels had a little bit of a game plan there to spot up Kelma against the centre or the fullback and either get the one-on-one to try and catch or a tip back. So really like that little attacking play, which I thought Dylan Brown executed really nicely with the weight and timing on his kick. So that was a great little one there. Charlie, statistically not, superb or anything like that, but he really reminded me of why I love him, because he was leading the line speed and defense, and you see that aggression to put on the big hit and get a double or a triple out of dummy half, and I think that's important to have that kind of guy in your pack. So welcome back, Charlie. We talked about Joash.
Just quickly, that'll be interesting with Charlie, because he's one of those players who could be equally adept on the edge or in the middle, and that level of versatility
is important.
Makes him a real option for the interchange for Jason Ryles.
Yeah, I agree. That positional versatility in the back row these days is worth a lot, and because if you can play edge back row, you can also cover the centres too. And while he wouldn't be a frontline pick in the centres, he has played there not that long ago, back in his first year of SG ball. I think he might have still been playing a little bit centre, but. Really good to see Charlie back. Joash, we gave a big shout out to. Great numbers, 10 carries, 123 metres. He's got a few tackle breaks in there, a try assist and a try. So he was everywhere there. I think the one black mark I put in his name, Sixties, was that 40-20, which, to be fair, was a very good kick. I thought maybe it could have been a little bit more aggressive, but bad break of the ball there. Went to Newcastle's way. Going to the interchange, I really liked what I saw from Big Sam Tuivasa tonight. 11 carries, just about 110 metres. He was fighting through contact there. Credited for didn't give him any tackle breaks credited, but he was sucking in the defenders there. Looked really good. Defensively, where is he? Got through 15 tackles, 0 miss, so a really good stint there from the young man. Sam is very much an NRL player of the future that maybe gets a little taste of first grade this year based on what we saw today. That was great to see. But beyond that, 60s, it's just the young guys that we gave a big shout out to, and really all of them. I thought Riley Smith, it was really good to see him get the early shot to play with the quote-unquote ones this week, because it's obviously not Parramatta's full-strength NRL team, but it was relative to the team name, the full-strength lineup. And I thought he looked great, really clean service, forced a line dropout on the back of pure hustle, the one that Jordan Samrani would go on to claim off the short dropout. And
stayed alive in a play that could have just as easily been a try.
And the bunker in mid-season form their 60s, because if that wasn't a stripping motion, I don't know what is. But we saw Kelma Tuolangi not stripped, the ball go backwards, and young Riley told ahead and stay alive and get the ball down. So he could have had a little try there to his name. And beyond that,
I did speak to you as well about what I saw last night, where the bunker denied the Sharks.
Yes.
Where I think the only person that couldn't decide that the Sharks never got a hand on the ball after it was knocked away by the Raiders defender, I think it was only the bunker that couldn't see or didn't think it was clear enough for them to award a try. But yeah, I thought that was clearly a try to the Sharks. But anyway, we digress. It's let's just say I hope we see a little bit better from the bunker during the year. I'll take my Eels coloured glasses off and say that I'd certainly be more aggrieved if I was a Sharks supporter than an Eels supporter. I can live with that not being called a try for the Eels and just call it a little bit unlucky and a 50-50 call. But the night before that was an atrocious call in my opinion. But anyway, I'll send you back to your list.
And it feels a bit superfluous to praise everyone, but I thought all the young kids on the bench really did a good job. Saxon Pryke was in defence, got through a lot and did a bit of work in offence, but he came on in a tough period. We praised Arpa Twiddle and Josh Lynn. Will Latu, I think, was the real standout off the extended bench, and I think he did himself a real positive service in terms of, well, again, I say positive service. He now looks like a player that you can't not pick in the cup team, but then again, how do you pick him in the cup team when you look at the amount of players in the mix? But I think they'll find a way to get him in there. Araz Namva and Tiankan Brown, very good for flag eligible boys there, sorry. Whew, mouthful there. And then you got Sammy Loizu doing a good job on the right wing. So really, the extended roster, very positive. I think what they did was they had a great mix of playing within the game plan and systems that the coaching staff obviously wanted, while also playing some heads-up football. And then one last shout-out, boys, and this isn't a play, this is the team. And this was a big concern of mine based on what I'd seen in the junior reps and the initial trials. But I think there was only one whistle for an incorrect play to ball in this game for not striking, and even then it was a bit marginal against Dylan Brown, I believe it was. And that was my big concern, that we might be a bit lax with the ball in hand, but they did a good job staying on top of it. So make sure you're on top of that moving forwards, boys, because the officials are very much in crackdown mode there.
Okay, now I've just got a couple of questions for you based on tonight. First of all, you had a lot of praise for Will Latu. Will Latu is a player that I'm suggesting that supporters watch during New South Wales Cup this year. I think he's got a lot of upside with his game, and I think that he is an NRL player of the future. Whether that happens, look, I think it's probably more realistic to be thinking about 2026 or beyond in terms of any first grade debut, but I think he's definitely got a big future in the club. The other was my tip to make a debut at some point this year, that being Tony Mattielli. Now, Tony had a solid game out there tonight. I don't know what his minutes were, and he certainly wasn't credited with a huge number of run meters, but I liked his defence. I liked the way that he was looking for the post-contact meters in those carries, and he also got a very good offload away tonight. I thought he, for what was his first run in first grade company, I thought he didn't look overawed. And
I was leaving big tones for you, mate, because he did have a solid game. The meterage is bang on what you want from your bench forward, especially given limited minutes. 6 carries, 60 metres just about. And like you said, the impressive part really, 18 tackles, 0 missed, which really the offensive stuff will come for a player like Tony Mattielli. Like, he is going to get his metres. He's a big boy, athletic. But you want to see him being locked in defensively, and that's exactly what he put on the board today. So well done to the big fella.
Yeah, absolutely. So, mate, I think that just about covers all that we need to for a trial of this nature. It was something where the Eels gave us some enjoyment watching it. It gave us a little bit more of a preview of the type of football that the Eels are likely to play, and the interviews certainly back that up as well, with the players talking, and Dylan Brown in particular, talking about it being very different this year, and that you'll see us playing a different brand of football. So I think all the messaging was backed up by what we saw out on the field. I think we also saw a very cohesive unit in terms of their connectivity with each other. And certainly the way that Zac Lomax was...
before that connectivity got a little bit disconnected between the pants and the waistline. But...
Oh, look, I think I said to you in the podcast through the week about some of the fun that the players have at training, and that I leave that. I don't comment on some of the amusing things that you might see at training, because that's their little inner sanctum. And if I just happen to be there watching it, well, so be it. But it's look, if Eels media show it, fantastic. But it's not really
I believe. Let me see. I had it up here somewhere. I believe our good mate at NRL Roast has it on his socials, so you can catch it there on Twitter. He's got the Fox must have released the B-roll there, so it's on NRL Roast to get if you want to go have a gander at that. And look,
okay. Well, he's a good mate of ours, Uncle Roasty. So we don't mind sending even more people
foot traffic
to
his way.
Join the what's he up to? 250,000 that follow him.
It sounds about right. He's a very, very popular man and for good reason on socials there. So, look, I just wanted to sign off 60s with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek because really, based on what we just saw there and that 44-18 win puts the Eels in the box seat to compete for the pre-season prize there. But I think there'll be a lot of fans understandably really G'd up here and talking about how many issues Coach Jason Ryles is going to have picking the team for round one. But I'll put you one more forwards that he's going to have problems picking the team next week. Is he going to be looking to, how can I partition minutes for all these players against the Tigers that I want to be seeing? Because he's got all his frontliners coming back next week that he's going to need to get some minutes and meters into. But then a lot of the players that we saw today deserve another look against what will be presumably a full-strength West Tigers outfit. So maybe it's going to be a couple of sleepless nights for the coach this week, despite having a good win.
And then just to double that down a little bit more, he might have a couple of players that don't play in the trials that declare themselves fit and ready to go for round one.
Yep. That with all the competition for spots, I could see a few players that, medically or otherwise haven't been able to take to the field and really getting in the coach's ear saying, "Nah, coach, I'm good. You can pick me." Really, really healthy competition for spots here at Parramatta now. We've had a very fun pre-season on the back of the work you've done, 60s, and seeing it start to come to fruition has been a lot of fun. And geez, it was just good to have some NRL football back for the blue and gold.
Mate, one of the things that gives me a lot of joy is after having reported on the pre-season to have the Eels deliver.
Come to life based on what you've been reporting.
Yeah, like literally match the reports of how they played in the scrimmage work during the pre-season. So that gave me a lot of joy, as I said, from that perspective. It's interesting when you're talking about this pre-season challenge because I'd completely forgotten about the fact that they were playing
for cashola,
points.
yeah, 100K.
Yeah, that their score and other aspects of the play earn them points. And I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just looking at it as a trial and looking for them to back up what I'd seen during the pre-season. And if they go on and get a little bit of cash from the pre-season, even better. But let's hope that what we end up with is again a bit of fun to watch in the next trial. Again, no injuries, and that we can bounce into round one with close to the full squad available. And the only other thing I'd like to add to that is when we spoke to Buckets and also when he spoke at the member forum and was talking about the roster, and he said, look, we've got a spot that we can fill before round one because they got 27 of the top 30 spaces filled. Then they got 2 spots left after that can be filled later in the year. But that one spot that's available now, well, they've got 3 weeks left to fill it. But he was at pains to say if we recruit someone, they have to be better than who we've got.
Exactly. That's the baseline metric always for recruitment. And I think there's a few guys that aren't in the top 30 that are starting to put their hands up, huh?
Yeah, so it may well be that the 28th spot is taken by someone who's currently in the roster who receives an upgrade. And, then it might be a chain of upgrades. So someone gets upgraded, which means, if by chance it was someone on development contract that was upgraded, that then opens a dev deal for someone who's not on a dev deal, and you get like a bit of a chain reaction there. But John, I think that just about wraps up the first instant reaction of the season. How good that we're actually talking about a win.
Oh.
Long may that continue. We know it's not going to happen every week, but we'd like it to happen more often than it doesn't. So we've started off on a positive note. And on that note, thank you to you for your fine work in this. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. And, of course, thank you to our wonderful listeners, the followers of the Cumberland Throw. We really appreciate your feedback and just your continuing support for what we do. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.